cosmos had seen many battles, but few could shake the very foundation of existence itself. This was one of them, in the heart of an abandoned world, where the skies burned crimson and the land was nothing but jagged rock and molten rivers. Two forces of destruction were about to collide. The battlefield was no ordinary place. It was a war-torn, desolate planet known as Xandrok 5, once a thriving world until Doomsday had arrived and reduced it to ruin. Now its surface bore the scars of a godless massacre, with deep craters and fractured mountains standing as monuments to the monster's wrath. Doomsday stood atop a crumbling peak, his grey, bone-plated body a living weapon forged from eons of death and resurrection. His red eyes burned with primal fury, scanning the empty wasteland for something, anything that could challenge him. He had conquered entire worlds, slain countless warriors, and crushed titans beneath his heel, and yet something deep inside him craved more. His entire existence was a cycle of destruction, adaptation, and evolution. He could not be stopped. He could not be killed. And then the ground trembled. A deep, rhythmic thud, thud, thud echoed across the wasteland, each impact sending waves of dust into the air. The planet itself seemed to recoil in fear as something approached, something monstrous, something unstoppable. From the horizon, a massive figure emerged. A towering behemoth clad in crimson and indestructible armor, with a helmet designed to withstand the unimaginable. His name was Cain Marco, but the universe knew him by another name, the Juggernaut. Powered by the mystical force of Cyttorak, he was a living juggernaut, incapable of being halted once he gained momentum. No force in existence had ever truly stopped him. Not magic, not gods, not even the laws of physics themselves. He did not dodge attacks. He did not yield. He simply moved forward. And now he had come for Doomsday. Marco cracked his knuckles, the sound like boulders grinding together. So you're the big bad that's been wrecking planets. His voice was thick with arrogance, but there was no humor in his tone. His battles had taken him across dimensions, and now Cyttorak had guided him here. The entity whispered in his mind, "Crush this abomination. Prove that nothing stands before the Juggernaut." Doomsday didn't respond with words. He never did. Instead, his lips curled into a grotesque grin. And then, with an ear-splitting roar, he launched himself forward. The ground shattered beneath him as he moved with terrifying speed, covering miles in mere seconds. Juggernaut didn't flinch. He simply charged forward. The two titans met with an explosion of force that sent shockwaves rippling through the planet. The impact alone split mountains in half, sending debris into orbit. A crater hundreds of feet deep formed beneath them, swallowing what remained of Xandrok 5's surface. Doomsday's claws raked against Juggernaut's armor, but the enchanted plating held firm. Marco's fist connected with Doomsday's ribcage, sending the monster flying back, crashing through jagged rock formations that crumbled like sand. But Doomsday was never down for long. He adapted. He learned. A guttural growl escaped Doomsday's throat as he rose. Bones shifting, muscles expanding, he had fought Kryptonians, new gods, and cosmic entities. None had destroyed him. None had been his equal. But this was different. This thing in red did not break, did not falter, did not feel fear. Juggernaut smirked. "That all you got?" Doomsday snarled and lunged again. The battle was far from over.
Are you just watching?
Subscribe, please.
The moons of Xandrok 5 were gone, reduced to drifting debris in the void. The remnants of a world once teeming with life now served as the battleground for two of the most indestructible forces in the universe. Doomsday and Juggernaut, beings of unmatched brutality, had been locked in a relentless war, their blows strong enough to distort the very fabric of space. Entire planets had shattered in their wake. The cosmic battlefield was now littered with floating rubble, spiraling asteroids, and the residual energy of 1,000 supernova-like impacts. Juggernaut hovered in the void, his massive form illuminated by the dying embers of destruction. His armor was cracked in places, his body aching from an endurance test unlike any before. But still, he stood, unstoppable, unbowed. his crimson aura flared with unwavering resolve. Doomsday snarled, his mutated form continuing to shift and adapt. His once grey skin was now fortified with bone plating, so dense that it gleamed like obsidian under the cosmic light. His eyes, burning red like miniature suns, locked onto his opponent. He had faced gods, titans, and celestial horrors, but none had pushed him to this limit. Something primal surged within him, the rage of extinction itself. Doomsday launched forward, warping space with his velocity. He was no longer just running. He was tearing through reality, his speed nearing light itself. His claws extended like spears, aiming for Juggernaut's chest, seeking to rip the very essence from him. Juggernaut stood his ground. Then at the last moment, he countered. With a thunderous roar, Juggernaut thrust both arms forward, colliding with Doomsday mid-charge. The impact was cataclysmic, an explosion of raw force that sent shockwaves, rippling through the remains of the battlefield. Planetoids crumbled, stars flickered, and even distant galaxies trembled at the sheer magnitude of their collision. Doomsday roared in fury, his claws raking across Juggernaut's armor. The adamantine plating screeched but held firm. Cain Marco's entire existence had been forged by unstoppable momentum. No force, not gods, not physics, not even the passage of time could halt his movement once he began. And Doomsday learned that lesson the hard way. Juggernaut grabbed him by the throat, his fingers digging into the impenetrable hide of the beast. His aura flared, powered not just by his own strength, but by the boundless eldritch might of Cyttorak himself. Enough. The single word reverberated through the void, a decree from a being who refused to yield. Juggernaut pulled back his fist, cosmic fire coiling around his arm like a serpent of destruction. Doomsday struggled, but for the first time, his thrashing was meaningless. He had faced forces of destruction before, but this was different. This was inevitability. The punch connected, and space itself screamed. The shockwave ripped through the battlefield, a rippling tsunami of energy that tore apart asteroids, extinguished smaller stars, and sent cosmic storms raging for light years. Xandrok V's shattered core imploded, the lingering fragments collapsing into nothingness under the sheer force of the blow. Doomsday was launched into the abyss. He hurtled through the void at speeds beyond light, his form colliding with the debris of a destroyed moon before breaking through it, as if it were dust. He plummeted toward the singularity at the edge of the system, a vast, ancient black hole, its gravitational pull devouring even the light of the nearest star. Doomsday thrashed. He tried to adapt, to evolve beyond this fate. He had survived death 1,000 times over. He had been reduced to nothing and risen again. But this was different. Juggernaut was not a force of nature that could be outlasted. He was not something Doomsday could adapt to. He was a constant, a fundamental truth of destruction, unstoppable. The monster let out a final, defiant roar, his claws raking at empty space as the gravitational force consumed him. Then he was gone. Juggernaut hovered amidst the wreckage, his fists still glowing with the energy of Cyttorak. He watched as the black hole sealed Doomsday's fate, swallowing him into an abyss from which even evolution itself could not escape. He let out a breath. He had been in countless fights, had broken through entire dimensions, crashed through realities, shattered legions. But this had been something else. He had won, not just survived, not just endured, but conquered. As the remnants of the battle settled and the cosmic storms began to fade, Cain Marco turned, his massive form disappearing into the void. Nothing stops the Juggernaut. And now the universe knew it too.